was able to see. A cup of coffee. He said be back in just a moment.
So what they say after your conversation?
Can you see me? Did she say yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can hear me.
Okay.
So you may want to mute your audio.
I got you now. I see you now, Vera. If we could just get Hob to get on board and bring it out of that committee, maybe enough people will push
Very good. Morning. Close the doors.
Now, what does she, I mean,
Good morning, Mr. Mudsinger. This is Zach Butterworth.
Hey, Zach, I can hear you now. Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well, man.
Good, good. All right, Dan. It looks like we have your client, Ms. Frith, on as well.
Good.
And Ms. Frith, you're currently muted, but if you can hear us, if you would, just give us a little wave. Excellent. Good deal. We're good.
Will we be on a split screen or just you and I seeing each other?
I believe that the screen will go back and forth between your view of me and then your view of the hearing panel.
Okay. But I won't be able to see her answering the questions. Oh, Right.
Is there a way to set that up, Shan? I'm not sure. He's asking if there's a way to do kind of a split screen to where he's able to view the board as well as his client, because he and his client are in separate locations.
Oh, no, he'd have to do that on his.
No, that's, you won't be able
That
to
is
do it.
fine, right?
It
On the
is.
screen. He can't see her.
That's what he's stating now, yeah.
Wesley, my paralegal said, don't worry about it. We're liable to mess it up. That's okay. We're good. You can just push technology so far. So. Listen. Not hearing anybody new. I can't. Well, Mr. Mudsinger, I'm not hearing anybody.
That's all. We're waiting for the
Oh,
president
okay.
and the assistant AG, and we'll unmute as soon as we're ready to get going.
Okay, I'll just stand by. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. there she is.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can. Wait, Wesley, we're both on if it's on. Can't hear him.
Mr. Mutziger, can you hear me?
He hasn't unmuted himself yet.
Oh, okay, okay. All right.
Maybe close some blinds. We might be muted, Shan. We've got a pretty serious glare coming from behind you. Could you close your blinds if you have some, please?
Are you talking to me, Butterworth?
Yes.
That's just a large door.
Give a sec, we can read.
You want to move me?
Yep.
She's gonna move me. Sorry.
No problem.
Hold on.
It may be just a slight shift of the camera might do it as well.
Well, it's the whole window. I mean, the whole thing is that better?
Yeah, we're
At
still
all?
getting a glare, but that's better.
Let me get to it. I moved like I'm at a big conference table with a big window behind me. Just put me right there. And then you see the books back there. Is that better, y'all? Is that better? Let me see if I
Yes.
mute. Okay, sorry.
Is on the record today with hearings at the City Board of Nursing. We would like to get started with our day with opening prayer from Ms. Shirley Jackson.
Good morning, everyone. If you will, please bow your heads. Most gracious Father, we come to you this morning thanking you for allowing us to open our eyes and see another beautiful day that you've created. Dear Father, put your armor of protection around us to help the panel make the right decision that will be beneficial for the public. Dear Father, thank you again for allowing the people that are before us to have understood why they're coming back in. Help us with the knowledge that's sitting before us of our attorneys, our court reporter, our presenters, our attorney general. We just thank you, Father, for all that you've already done and what you're going to continue to do. Bless those who have had tragedy with the COVID-19. Bless those who have been faced with making a decision of having the injection done. Guide us, God, because now this is the time that we need you most of all. If there's anything that we've done wrong, we ask for your forgiveness, and we will do our very best to do better. In Jesus' name, I do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
As we get started today, the Board of Nursing is made up of 13 members. There are 7 RNs, 4 LPNs, 1 physician, and 1 consumer. We are a 3-member panel today with 4 board members serving. 1 will serve as an alternate and will not participate in either the deliberations or the decision concerning each case. The board members present today, to my left, Ms. Nancy Norris Johnson, who is LPN, Dr. Mary Stewart, I'm Dr. Teresa Stanford, and Shirley Jackson, who is an LPN. We also have a representative from the Attorney General's office, and at this time, I will turn the meeting over to him.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Edward Wiggins, Special Assistant Attorney General. I will be serving as a hearing officer this morning. I believe first we have on the docket matter regarding license number R882251, restoration. Is the licensee present?
I am.
Please state your name.
My name's Frida Frith.
Thank you, Ms. Frith, and I understand you are represented by counsel. Counsel, will you please identify yourself?
Good morning, sir. My name is Zach, Z-A-C-H Butterworth, P.O. Box 3567, Bay, St. Louis, Mississippi, 39521, sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Counsel, do we have any preliminary matters we need to get into?
I would ask that the board go ahead and consider the admission of exhibits as well as the swearing in of witnesses.
At this time, are there any witnesses we need to have sworn in besides the licensee?
There are none from the state.
No, sir.
So
I'll ask that the licensee be sworn in at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Frith, would you raise your right hand to be sworn in, please, ma'am? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this call is to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. Before we get started, I would like to indicate that we will have opening statements. Each party will have an opportunity to present their side of the argument this morning. These hearings are open to the public. Once we've heard all of the evidence, the board panel will go into a session to deliberate on that. We will have the option to deliver a decision, a written decision, following considering all of the evidence that is presented here today. Barring any further preliminary matters, counsel.
at this time, I would go ahead and move that exhibits B1 through B9, which would include the restoration application of the respondent, there in exhibit B7. I would ask that those be admitted into evidence.
Counsel Butterworth,
What-
do you have any objection to those exhibits?
Without objection from me, Your Honor, making sure that all the attachments are attached to the application. I'm pretty sure they are. Certificates of compliance and sign-in sheets for drug rehab and affidavits from the 5 affiants. I think that's pretty much it.
Yes, Mr. Butterworth, my review of exhibit B7 would include the application for restoration of nursing license, supplementary handwritten page answering questions 4, 8, and 9. It would also include supporting affidavits provided by your client, Ms. Frith. Further, it would include documentation of attendance at AANA meetings. It would then also include documentation from Jalomar Recovery Center in Summit, Mississippi. It would include aftercare intensive outpatient reports. That appears to conclude the application for restoration that's identified as Exhibit B7.
Thank you, sir.
No objection to those exhibits, they are admitted. All right, since we are dealing with a restoration this morning, Mr. Butterworth, we will begin with you and your client. You may begin with an opening statement if you have one.
To the extent that we are honored to appear before your board, she is particularly grateful for the opportunity to make an attempt to renew her license before you today. With regard to the facts, the application, which is presume each one of you is looking at speaks for itself, and I will review that with her on direct testimony and waive any other statements at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Musaki.
Morning. The board is here today to consider the application for restoration of license of Ms. Frida Frith. Ms. Frith's license was revoked pursuant to a February 20th, 2020 final order, wherein Ms. Frith was found guilty of violating the nursing practice law. Specifically, she tested positive on 2 drug screens with her employer, both of which showed positive for opiate medications. Today, the burden is to be carried by the applicant, Ms. Frith. It is upon her to show that she is safe to return to the practice of nursing, that she is fit, competent, and poses no risk to the public. I ask that you consider all evidence duly admitted today before the board and all testimony elicited today and make a decision that is within the best interest of protection of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council Butterworth, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Frith, I'm speaking to you, of course, remotely, and I'm not sure if you can see me on your screen. You have been previously sworn to tell the truth before this board. I'm just going to review the facts with you one question at a time. Please state your full legal name.
My name is Frida Silberger Frith. My address is I'm sorry, can you hear me?
No, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
My address is 1113 Cherry Street, Summit, Mississippi 39666.
Okay, and how old are you, ma'am?
I'm 60 years old.
Okay. And how long have you lived in the state of Mississippi?
Moved here in 1994.
And where did you obtain your education in order to obtain an RN license in the state?
I attended Southwest Mississippi Community College in Summit and graduated 2009.
Okay. And when did you first obtain your nursing license?
I believe it was June of that same year.
Okay. And you have no licenses or permits in any other state, is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay. And you're married?
Yes, I am.
You have children and grandchildren?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And how long have you actually lived in Macomb?
About 25 years,
Okay.
26 years.
You're pretty much part of that community,
Yes, I am.
take it. Okay. Now, I'm looking at your original application. I'm going to go through this carefully and quickly.
Okay.
Number one, I want to point this out to the board. You've never been convicted of a crime, a felony, but I think there was a misunderstanding, and you never had a drug conviction. Is that correct?
Never.
Never been arrested for drugs or anything. I mean,
No,
that's not.
No, sir. Mm-mm.
But you did have truancy violation, which you forgot about with your daughter. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And I apologize for that oversight. And I believe it was when my daughter was in middle school and there were some charges because she would leave campus after I dropped her off.
And that was just an oversight. It was never meant to be
Yes,
intentional.
sir.
You just thought it was kind of a civil matter, I believe. Are there any criminal charges pending against you at this time?
No, sir.
And you haven't been found guilty of any misconduct in another state because you
No.
never worked in another state and you're not a licensee there. Has your license ever been suspended, revoked, or restricted?
Yes, it has in the past.
And that was suspended July 23rd, 2019.
Yes,
And you actually went to a hearing before this board then, is that correct?
I did.
And you were unrepresented by counsel.
Yes, I was.
And the board issued a revocation at that time of your license.
Yes.
But it wasn't really final because you never got a final order until when?
February 20th of last year, I believe. I got it in the mail.
So it's
I
kind
don't know.
of, it's kind
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's when I received it, I believe. I don't know when, if it was signed a couple days before that, but I received it, I believe, on the 20th.
but the truth is you had a little built-in period there where even though there was no formal written action approved by the Attorney General, you understood at that time you were suspended or revoked from working in a hospital.
From
Correct.
working as an RN, yes.
Right. And so you, in fact, when you did that, when you appeared before the board in July of 2019, were you already on a program somewhere?
Yes.
And where was that?
At work
Okay.
at Southwest. They were giving me drug screens there.
Okay. So again, even before you received the formal notice from the State of Mississippi Bureau of Nursing, Office of this licensing authority,
Mhm.
you were already working on the rehabilitation efforts.
Yes, I was already going to meetings. I did not
What
know, I'm sorry.
What
I
meetings
didn't
were
know
those?
what the outcome would be, but I was already going to meetings, yes.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Butterworth, to
Mhm.
be clear,
Yes,
in
ma'am.
between the time that I went to the hearing and received the final order, yes, I was already had signed up for the psychological evaluation and was waiting on his report for treatment, for whatever he recommended for treatment.
And number 6, have you ever been requested to appear before or submit an explanation? The answer is
Yes.
yes.
Mhm.
Have you ever been denied a license or an opportunity to take an examination for licensure by a licensing authority?
No.
And number 8, has any hospital license terminated your professional training? Number 8, the
Yes,
answer is,
I answered yes.
what hospital was that?
That at Southwest.
Okay. And then number 9, have you ever received any counseling, treatment, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back just for a second to number 8. Now, where are you currently employed?
I'm at Southwest Mississippi Regional Medical Center.
Okay, and in fact, you've always worked there. Is that not true?
Yes.
Since this matter was brought before the board last time. And
Yes.
what is your position there?
I work in the ER as a unit secretary.
Okay, and you have had is that a full-time job?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you've maintained full-time employment through the past 18 months?
Yes, that I started working August 19th of 2019 as a secretary.
Okay. And I noticed on your explanation for number 9 that you went to Jalmar Recovery Center outpatient for 10 weeks. Is that
Yes.
true?
Mhm.
And are you now attending aftercare?
Yes. I
How
go
often?
once a week for aftercare now.
Okay. And what other things do you do on a weekly basis?
I go to at least 3 meetings a week. I talk with my sponsor. I actually chair a meeting on Monday night.
Okay.
I talk with other people in recovery. I'm just
Uh,
very committed to staying clean.
Now, to be totally candid with this board, you had a problem previously, is that correct?
Yes,
And how many years ago was that?
6 years ago, 7
Okay.
years ago, I think.
Okay. And it also involved some opioid and narcotic use, is that correct?
Yes,
And were you able to stay clean for a number of years?
yes, I was.
Okay. Now, what would you say I mean, you've been through a lot of therapy and counseling in the past 18 months. Is there anything that has been, you feel in any way causally related to your relapse that happened 18 months ago?
Well, I was diagnosed with cancer and had surgery and chemo, and there was complications. I was in and out of the hospital that year, missed a lot of work, and then was still trying to catch up when I was well enough to work. And I did not handle it the way that I should have.
Right. But is that an excuse for
No,
the use of drugs and being tested positive?
no, I knew what I should have been doing, which was staying in contact with other people in recovery and being more candid with my providers about pain medicine and about my pain control.
And have you learned to reach out for support now?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I have.
Okay. I'm gonna turn a couple of pages, maybe number 10. And I think you just testified to that. In other words, in outpatient aftercare and counseling that is still ongoing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we've talked about your secretarial job. What are some of the activities that you've been involved in? If you look at number 3 at the bottom of the page, says that you chaired NA meetings.
Organized and chaired meetings, some of them literature studies. The pandemic has kind of curbed a lot of the activities that we would usually do in my group. We have a big camp out every summer for the weekend, but we were not able to do that last year. And it's kind of up in the air if we can do that this year. We actually had to Zoom meetings for a while when things first started showing up. And so basically, we stay in contact a lot by phone, Facebook, but we still have regular face-to-face meetings, and we stay in touch with each other that way.
What prior to losing your license or being revoked, what in what area of the hospital did you work?
I worked on the telemetry floor, which is like the step down from the step down as described. And it's mostly cardiac patients, but we get a lot of spillover from ICU.
I got you. And you don't have any other subspecialty within your RN degree professionally?
No, not at present, except for
Is there-
the required certifications, not at present, no.
Okay. And do you believe that you have stayed current enough in order to make sure that you're competent to go back to nursing on a daily basis?
I do. In the ER, I'm right front and center in the back where patients come. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I had a phone call that came in and interrupted.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Yes,
But,
in the ER, I'm
you-
right front and center. I coordinate a lot of transfers from hospital to hospital, and it has been very busy in the last year because Nobody has any beds. We have to coordinate care in a whole different way. And I help the nurses with their paperwork. I make sure things are scanned in. I make sure transfer papers are filled out correctly. And I pay attention to what they're doing. As a nurse, I listen to lab values. I look at the monitor. I cannot take report. I can't be hands-on care for a patient, barring maybe a glass of water, but I do pay attention, and I feel like I've been kind of, maybe not in the trenches, but in the front lines of this pandemic since it started.
It's probably
It's
been
taught
very
me a
helpful.
lot.
It's
Yes.
probably been helpful for the administration with your experience to have you there as before patients are triaged or anything, that they can depend on you to understand.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, and then you have attached 5 affidavits, notarized affidavits by 5 people, and I'm going to go through their names very quickly with you.
Okay.
Number 1, Miss Buggs. Who is she?
Boggs. Yes.
Who is she?
She is the DON at Southwest, the director of nursing. She's been the director of nursing for a couple of years. Before that, she was nurse manager of surgery. So she's been here a long time.
And she has signed an affidavit supporting you in your efforts to go before this board. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what about Doris Holiday? Who is she?
Doris Holiday she's another nurse who's also a house supervisor. She works nights. She just got her BSN and is about to go to nurse practitioner school.
Okay. What about Mark Irby?
Mark Irby, I've actually known him for a long time. He was my nurse manager on the telemetry floor on 3 South. He is now a house supervisor. He's also a nurse practitioner that does some hospitalist work at night.
And then Donnie Rushing.
Donnie Rushing's Sherry Short.
Yeah.
She's a friend. I've known her and her family for years. We used to babysit for each other. And now our kids are grown and have kids of their own. And right now she's a peer counselor.
Okay, and then Mr. Rushing?
I've known him probably maybe 20 years. He's a small business owner. He's also in recovery, as is with Ms. Short too. I forgot to mention that. And he has been around and a big support for a long time.
And so each one of these people has signed a statement under oath attesting the fact that they know you and talking about your characteristics and the quality of your work or competence. And you realize that you put them in a position that if you fail them, that it's not good. In other words, they're stepping up to the plate for you. And
Yes.
It's important for them to support you. It's also important for you to support them in their allegiance to you. And are you willing to abide by that?
I am. It means a lot to me.
Okay. And assuming if this board were to grant you, of course, the board can deny this. They can deny it with conditions. They can grant it with no conditions, or they can grant it with conditions. And if the board saw fit to allow you to have a license again with some conditions, are you willing to abide by whatever conditions they set forth?
I absolutely will do that.
Okay. And there are a number of requirements that before you could apply for this restoration, you had to have, I think it was 12 months of clean drug screens. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how many months of clean drug screens have you had now?
I signed up with Affinity. I got the form back from Miss Charla, she was the one that was in charge of it at that time. And I believe I started checking in on September 3rd, 2019.
Say it again. When was it? November?
No, September 3rd, September.
So really, you might have 15 months, 16 months.
It was my understanding that some of those would not count because they were before the final order. But I believe I have the required number of screens after February 2020.
And you're not here to dispute the findings of this board previously. In other words, they
No.
made a finding, you tested dirty for 1 or 2 drugs that you did not have prescriptions for.
Yes.
And you were never, I can't remember the word the hospital uses, charged with diversion or
No,
whatever. But you did, and you're not here to deny that.
I am
You-
not.
You stepped up to the plate on that and you realized that you had a problem. And do you feel like that problem has been compartmentalized to a place that you can deal with it now?
I feel like I don't want to say I have it under control. I want to say that I want to stay clean and will do everything to the best of my ability to stay that way. And things have changed for me a lot. I've learned a lot this year. At the last 2 years, really, I had cancer and so far have come out of it clear. My scans are clear. I
Good.
lost my nursing license. Then I became a grandmother to a disabled child. A lot of things have changed in my life, and I would love to practice nursing until I retire. But even if the board does not see fit to reinstate me, I intend on staying involved in recovery no matter what.
Okay. I'm going to turn you over to opposing counsel
Okay.
and ask you to answer all of his questions.
Okay.
Thank you, members of the board.
All right, thank you. Ms. Iger?
So good morning, Ms. Frith.
Good morning, Mr. Mutziger. Thank you for letting me appear.
Yes, ma'am. So to be clear, Ms. Frith, you were originally licensed with this board 2009, is that correct?
Yes.
And so you've been a nurse now for, what is that, 12 years or so, 10, 12 years?
Yes, sir.
And your nursing license was in fact revoked February 20th, 2020 pursuant to a July 2019 hearing.
Yes.
And at that hearing, it was determined that you in fact tested positive at least 2 times for opiate medications while working at Southwest Regional Medical Center. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those drugs that you tested positive for, how did you obtain those drugs?
From my husband.
And you readily admit today that you, in fact, have an issue with drugs. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you have a disciplinary history with this board as well, right?
Yes, sir.
So you were actually in the recovery nurse program beginning in 2013. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, it was.
And did you complete that program?
I did.
When did you complete that program?
I completed in, I think it was 2016.
And back up just a little bit. When did you first learn that you had an issue with drugs and alcohol, Ms. Frith?
It was after I started nursing, after I graduated from nursing school. I started working in the hospital. It was stressed out. I did not handle it well at that time. I was an older student. I had a daughter in junior high school, and none of these are excuses for using.
And what was your drug of choice?
It was opiates.
And how did you begin your abuse of opiates?
It's after I went to the dentist and he prescribed me some pain medicine. I also had some other health issues, kidney problems, kidney stones.
So you completed the Recovering Nurse program approximately 2016.
Yes.
And only 2 years later, you found yourself in a similar situation wherein you tested positive for opiates at Southwest Regional Medical Center. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So what led to the failure to stay clean in 2018?
And after I was diagnosed with cancer, I was in and out of the hospital that year. There was complications with the chemotherapy. I had some pain, but in retrospect, looking back, it should have been handled a lot differently. But I missed a lot of work, and then I would try to catch up. I actually got a PRN job during that time. I got away from my friends in recovery. I stopped going to meetings. I think I became depressed after the diagnosis, and I think the chemo affected me. And I don't have an excuse. All I can say is there was just so much going on that instead of reaching out to the people that I would usually ask for help, I tried to just handle everything myself and act like everything was okay, and to continue working as hard as I could.
I see. And so you do in fact recognize that you failed to continue in some of the protocols that were necessary for you to maintain your sobriety.
Absolutely. I take full responsibility for that.
And I believe that that is further bolstered by the affidavit that you previously referenced from a LaVoice Boggs, who states that in question number 5, Frida has taken responsibility for her relapse, and she recognizes areas in her life that she had to change. Frida no longer gives excuses, but owes her relapse as her fault due to not following the program. So you would agree that you are not following the program.
I do.
And you testified, Ms. Frith, that a lot has changed in your life. That in fact, you have several external personal circumstances that have changed. But what you really haven't touched on is how that has changed you and your approach to handling or ensuring your sobriety. Could you describe that for the board, please?
I recommitted myself to my recovery. It has to stand first in my life, even before family, even before my nursing license, because anything I put ahead of that, I would lose. And I've proven that to myself and to other people who relied on me and who trusted me. So since then, I have been willing to do anything I could to keep a spiritual contact with my higher power, to know that using is never the answer. And there are certain external things. I became a grandmother of a disabled child. I have to be there for that child because she's going to need me for as long as I'm alive. I also realize that what other people do around me cannot affect me when it comes to my recovery. I have to focus on myself. And it also made me really realize, especially working as a unit secretary and not being part of the quote club of nurses, especially during this pandemic, how important it is for me to be able to do some good in my life as well as do no harm. And I really do feel like I have made my recovery my priority, not just succeeding as an employee, not just looking good on the outside, but also it's a real relief to have my life be transparent again and not have to hide things and not have to worry about running out of pills. It's been very devastating to lose my license, but it also really woke me up, and it's given me a real sense of freedom to not have to have some kind of other side of me or double life.
Thank you, Ms. Frith. Now, as you've mentioned, you mentioned some specific areas where you had previous failures. And so to continue on this theme of what you're doing differently, you mentioned that you wish you had done some things differently regarding pain control.
Yes.
You still have pain management issues or experience pain that requires medication.
My scans for the cancer that I had have been clear. I've had some dental work, and I will take 2 or 3 ibuprofen for that. There is absolutely no way I can ever go home with a prescription to any kind of pain medicine. And if it were to happen that I was in the hospital, and I hope that does not happen, where I would require surgery, I would have to be very, very candid with the practitioner and have them keep me there a few days longer if needed to be. If I've thought about this, if I needed to control the pain, but I do not ever want to have a prescription for pain medicine where I just go fill it myself ever again.
Thank you. You also mentioned that you failed to ask for support. Have you constructed any new kind of support system that you can evidence today for the board?
Well, I have a sponsor now, and I talk to her on a regular basis. I shared meetings, and I've gotten a lot more serious about the meetings. We actually study the literature and talk about it. I have a really good aftercare group with great people in it, and I have a very good counselor one-on-one, Miss Pat Brawley. And there are things that I talk about with her that maybe I don't speak about in group. And I get regular support from the people that I work with in the ER. They've been very supportive, and I didn't know that they would be, because I've known all these people for years. They knew exactly what happened and what I did, but they have been very encouraging and supporting, and I have been honored to work with them, with the nurses and the doctors and the techs and the respiratory therapists.
Thank you. Now, how long have you had the sponsor, Ms. Frith?
I've known her for a long time. I've probably had her as a sponsor for about the last year.
And you have provided documentation today of AANA attendance up until at least January 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, I had other papers at home, but I just put together the 12 months.
And do you attend those virtually or in person?
No, we've been attending in person probably after, I want to say, August of 2020. We were Zoom for a few months, but our meetings are small and we wear masks, so we attend in person. Yes, sir.
You've provided documentation today of some treatment that you've received from a facility, I believe, called Jomar. I'm not sure if I'm
Jolamar. Jolamar, yes, sir.
Okay. And you testified that that was in response to a recommendation you received from an assessment. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Now, I don't see a copy of an assessment within the restoration application, Ms. Frith. Whom did you obtain the assessment from?
It was Mr. Baxter Hogue, and he had told me that he would send in the recommendation to the board. And this was actually a long time ago. And I apologize if I did not follow up with him. I assumed, and I shouldn't have, that he sent that recommendation in, but I would be willing to provide that.
And how did you select Mr. Baxter Hogue?
I contacted Ms. Charla and asked her for a list of approved assessors by the board.
So it's your testimony that he is in fact an approved assessor?
Yes, yes, sir.
And as part of his recommendations, you testified that that he recommended you attend intensive outpatient treatment. Is that accurate?
Yes,
And did you do that?
I did.
And have you submitted documentation today evidencing your completion of IOP with Jolimar Recovery Center?
I have.
And that was on approximately July 30th, 2020.
That was the completion of the actual 10 weeks. Yes, I'm still going to aftercare and one-on-one.
And you've provided today for the board's consideration documentation of your aftercare meetings. Is that right?
I believe Mr. Johnson, he was sending them in on a monthly basis.
Yes, ma'am. And in fact, it appears that we have documentation up until 1/28/2021 from Mr. Johnson, as you stated, regarding your aftercare reports. You also submitted to drug testing as a condition of seeking restoration of your nursing license to show your
Yes.
sobriety. Earlier, you were asked how many negative drug screens you have had. I'm not sure that we got a clear answer. Do you happen to know that number?
Since September 3rd, 2019, I believe it was 16 clean screens.
So you have not had any positive drug screens during this time.
Not positive for anything, no, sir.
Now, do you have any missed check-ins during that time?
I have had missed check-ins and I've set an alarm on my phone.
How many did you have?
I think I had 3.
Okay, would you agree that an examining exhibit B8, that in fact, the report shows that you've had 5 missed check-ins?
Is that since September 3rd?
The period is August 30th, 2019 to February
Okay.
3rd, 2021.
Okay. Then it was 5. But I guarantee you, Mr. Mutziger, it won't happen after this.
And when did you last work as a nurse, Ms. Frith?
It was, I believe I got the notice of suspension somewhere in mid-June 2019. So I had just worked the week before. So it's hard. I don't know the exact date. I want to say it was probably the 12th or 13th of June.
A little over a year and a half. Does that
Yes, sir.
sound about right?
Yes, it does.
And you've maintained employment with Southwest Regional Medical Center as a unit secretary starting in August 2019, and you're still currently employed there.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Do you have any prospective employment with Southwest should the board grant you a nursing license today?
When I talked to Miss LaVoice, she asked me where I might want to work if I was restored. And I said, anywhere that you want me to be, I will be, as long as it's within the guidelines of any restrictions I might have imposed on me by the Board of Nursing.
So, Ms. Frith, if the board today in their discretion chose to restore your nursing license, subject to conditions such as continued drug testing, continued AA&A attendance, would you comply with those conditions?
Absolutely.
Even for a period up to 5 years?
As long as I'm required to.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mutziger.
Thank you.
Ms. Frith, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And this is just my own memory. And I know, again, there's no excuse, but when all this first started and you started going to for the drug screens and follow-up outpatient, and again, I was communicating right from the beginning with Mr. Mutzinger, if you remember, and you and I were communicating, and you told me that there was some, again, you've done very well, but there were 2 or 3 of these calls you were unable to make, but it was in order to get the test. And I don't remember what the reason was, but I remember you telling me about it. And but it's your testimony today that you have not used since this license was revoked.
I have not used since before my actual hearing. I think my clean date is June 15th, 2019. So I had already stopped. And it was before I knew I was going to have a hearing, but I also, so much had happened. I knew that I was on thin ice at work and I was just tired of it. I didn't know if I was going to lose my license or not, but I knew there was going to be discipline. And I also knew that I just could not live that way anymore. There were too many things that were important to me that I was sabotaging by continuing to use.
And so you never spoke to me, and of course, until after that hearing.
No,
when
I didn't secure counsel
You didn't.
until later.
And you really got a handle on things very quickly and started becoming 100% compliant, even without the final order from the state of Mississippi.
I did everything I could. The first week, I have to admit, I wasn't shocked, but I was stunned by it. But after that, I printed out the restoration packet. I asked my boss if he wanted me to resign. Well, my boss at that time was Mark Irby, and he refused it and asked if I would wait before I did anything. So after a couple of weeks, a position opened up in the ER. I mean, they didn't create that position for me. It opened up in the ER as a unit secretary. And it was very humbling, but it was something that needed to happen for me. So I'm very grateful to the administration here at the hospital.
Okay. And you're asking this board to consider humbly your restoration application and granting you some relief would be positive for you so that you can go back to your chosen profession. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I have no other questions. Do members of the board have any questions? Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the board panel?
Ms. Frith, thank you for being here and sharing with us your story and showing humility. I have just a few questions to clarify.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
mentioned you did miss 5 of the check-ins for your
Yes,
drug
ma'am.
screen. And you said that you guaranteed that would not happen again, but the last one was just this past December.
Yes, ma'am.
So other than alarm on your phone, what would be your plan to quote guarantee that did not happen again?
Put an alarm on my phone. I have like a little laminated placard right on my coffee pot that I made at work that says, "Don't forget to check in." And that's the first thing I see in the morning. And I apologize for missing those check-ins. I think that one day in December, I was at Walmart Christmas shopping, which again is no excuse, but it's just time got away from me. But I will make sure that it becomes just instinct to check in every day.
The coffee pot is probably a good idea. I think that's smart. The other question that I had is that your source for drugs in the past was not just your own prescriptions, but you said from your husband, and I
Yes.
think from the record, perhaps a friend, a family friend, or
Yes.
at work. So, does your husband or close friends, do they continue to use pain control?
I really right now I'm not associated with anybody that is using pain control. I mean, if I'm able to ask somebody for their medication and they give it to me, it's probably someone that I don't need to be seeing or speaking to. I mean, it's not their fault. That's about me, but I have done everything I could to keep, my life has gotten a routine now and I like it.
Okay, and the last question I have for you is, what, if any, would you consider a valid excuse or reason to miss a meeting, to miss an NA meeting or a meeting with your counselor? What would you accept as a reasonable excuse not to go?
If I got the virus, I would probably have to miss. But I've been vaccinated, so hopefully I can avoid that. If my granddaughter she has a lot of doctor's appointments, and sometimes with everybody's schedule, we have to coordinate who takes her. That might cause me to miss a meeting, but I would do my best to try to make it up.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the panel? Right. Mr. Butterworth, you may give us your closing remarks.
Members of the board, I appreciate you allowing us to appear. You can't really see me, but I'm an old attorney, and I've been involved in the legal system, I guess it's 41, 42 years. And I was a prosecutor for 11 years, and I've been a youth court prosecutor, and I've seen the scourge in our society of drugs since 1976. And we're all aware of the national crisis of opioid use. And I also see we have, in some courts, we've imposed such strict restrictions on some people. I mean, we have them going to AA 7 days a week in order to keep them out of jail. But even, in order to even see their children. And there's no excuse, but I do know that sometimes people can't do 100%, but most of them do the best, because a lot of times the motive is to be able to continue as good parents or grandparents. And I think that is a new twist for her at this point. She's got a severely impaired grandchild that lives with her. That being said, it's liberating and enlightening for me to hear this testimony. And I've appeared before the doctors' boards, and I've never appeared before a nursing board. But the answers to your questions and my questions, Mr. Mutzinger's questions, have been so totally candid and unguarded to me that I really appreciate her testimony. All that being said, I mean, we have one goal here, and this is due process, and I've been very impressed with the due process that this board adheres to. I was telling Mr. Mutzinger, been through a lot of board hearings in different capacities, and the organization of this board is very nice. It's the delivery. I tell you that, sir, Your Honor. The way it's put together affords everyone an enormous amount of due process, which also affords you the ability to do what's within your statutory scheme. So again, that being said, I appreciate everything and would ask you consider reinstatement, either with conditions or without conditions, but to change her status and allow her to become an RN again. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mutzinger.
Yes, briefly. Ms. Frith has completed and submitted an application for restoration of her nursing license. The burden today is to be carried by her. She has submitted evidence of 16 negative drug screens. She has submitted evidence of completion of intensive outpatient treatment. She submitted evidence of aftercare meetings and AA/NA attendance. It is also my opinion that she has provided candid testimony today, testimony that goes to identifying changes in her life to maintain her sobriety. You will hear that Ms. Frith is a good candidate for restoration of her nursing license. The charge of this board is, as always, to protect the public, to ensure public safety. One way that we do that is to ensure continued sobriety upon re-entrance to the profession. We do that through continued drug screening, continued monitoring of AANA attendance. And I would submit to this board that would be appropriate if this board sees so fit to grant her her nursing license. Just ask that the board consider all evidence duly admitted today, render a decision that is within the best interest of the public. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Musiger. Thank both of you, counsel, for your arguments you presented here today. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the board to enter closed determination regarding deliberation on this matter.
I make a motion that we go into closed deliberation and then executive order.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. At this time, we will entertain a motion for the board to enter executive session for deliberation on this matter. Been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The board will now exit to executive session for deliberation on this matter. Mr. Butterworth, we will return once we have when we are ready to render a decision. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, can you excuse me for just a second, Zach? I'll be right back. Can
Yes,
you hear
ma'am.
me? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right.
Zach, feel free to mute your microphones, hide your cameras, your video. It'll be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, could be sooner, could be longer. So you guys just kind of hang tight and we'll let you know when the panel is returned with their decision.
Can you call me on my cell phone? That way, I don't know
sure
if
can.
I'm in front of an iPad. It's not plugged in. It's liable to run out of juice here. I can try and get an extension cord and plug it in.
Okay, I'll be happy to call you when the panel returns.
That's perfect. Thank you. And if she comes on, will you tell her? I'll call her when you call me.
Sure will.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks. Ms. Frith, I'm just letting you know that it could be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, maybe more, maybe less. I just discussed with your counsel. I'll be calling him when the panel returns and that he'll be in contact with you. So feel free to leave your microphone on mute or turn off your camera. Just remain on the line. We'll be in touch. Thank you, Shane.
Apologize.
Got Harry Potter on it. This one, zero. Three.
We are back on the record. I'll entertain a motion to return to regular session.
I move that we return to regular.
Been moved and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Board is now back in regular session. Following deliberation on license number R882251, the board renders the following reinstated with drug-related stipulations to include chemical and psychological evaluation. We will note that we will have to have documentation of the prior evaluations provided, or both of those will have to be completed again. We'll also require present and future employer notification, probation, employer reports, aftercare, AA, NA attendance meetings, drug screens. A copy of this order will be forwarded to the licensee. We certainly thank you for your appearance here today. Mr. Butterworth, thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to thank the board for seeing me and for the role that you do in protecting the public. And you have helped me a lot also.
And I would like to say it is difficult to be on this board under the auspice of protecting the public, but we have to take our cohorts licenses at times, and to have been on the hearing panel that we were pretty much mandated to revoke your license, but then to get to return to watch how far you have become since then makes this worthwhile. And I wish you good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can't really tag too much onto that, but I want to thank you too, Ms. Frith. And I would encourage you, if you would, you're very open, but to share your story, perhaps with students at Southwest. Dr. Temple, who's the dean there, I think would welcome that. They need to hear these real stories of real nurses who are managing these lifelong problems. So I would encourage you to do that. And again, I appreciate you being here, and my best hopes for you.
Thank you. I know Ms. Temple, and that it sounds like a great idea. I'd be honored.
Once again, thank you, Ms. Smith, Mr. Butterworth. You are excused.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, y'all.
license number R898549. This is an appeal of a denial. My name is Edward Wiggins. I'll be serving as the hearing officer. This time I'd like the board members to introduce themselves.
Mary Stewart.
Okay.
Teresa Stanford, nurse practitioner.
Shirley Jackson, LPN.
All right, thank you. Is the licensee present?
I am.
Please state your name.
My name is Tiffany Donaldson.
All right, thank you. Are there going to be any witnesses for the state?
Just Miss Donaldson.
Okay. At this time, I'll ask that the witnesses be sworn in.
Ms. Donaldson, would you raise your right hand to be sworn in for your testimony, please, ma'am? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Ms. Donaldson, I understand you're not represented by counsel, is that correct?
No, I'm not.
You understand you have the right to be represented by an attorney?
I do.
You also understand you have the right to present witnesses on your behalf?
I do.
You also understand you have the right to cross-examine any witnesses who may testify against you.
Yes, sir.
And finally, you understand you have the right to have subpoenas issued by the board prior to this hearing.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. We will move forward as follows with opening statements from both parties. We will have an opportunity to hear arguments from both sides. There will be an opportunity for the board panel to ask questions of the licensee. Remind everyone that these hearings are open to the public. Council, do we have any preliminary matters?
Yes, the state at this time would move exhibits B1 through B11 be admitted into evidence.
Ms. Donaldson, do you have any objection to those exhibits?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you. They are admitted. At this time, we will move forward with opening statements. Ms. Donaldson, you may proceed.
I'm sorry.
If you have an opening statement, you can make it at this time.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, for the opportunity for the board to hear my case. What I hope to get out of this is a better understanding of where I'm at today and getting my nursing license reinstated. I realize, when I applied in 2019, it was under my understanding, when I came into drug court, that I was charged with the offense, but I wasn't convicted. So when I did complete the application, I was just on the understanding, that the answer was no, and then when my background came back, it would provide a better understanding of, my situation. I wasn't able to pay for the application at the time. So, when the pandemic hit, a friend of mine made me aware of the temporary, emergency nursing license, which I did apply for, and I received it, and I began working at Queen City Nursing here in Meridian. And then I was able to pay for the license, my background check and all of that. And it just didn't occur to me, at that time, I paid the $100 and I submitted it. I was encouraged by drug court, to at least try, and then and I was, and I'm okay with being, disciplinary actions, maybe having restrictions or, you know, whatever the disciplinary actions are. But that's where I'm at today. I just would like to have a better understanding of where I'm at with getting my nursing license back.
Thank you, Ms. Donaldson. Ms. May?
Yes, we are here on the appeal petition of Ms. Donaldson. Phyllis Johnson, who was authorized by this board, executed an administrative denial of a reinstatement application that was submitted by Ms. Donaldson. And the authority to deny that application was based on Mississippi Code 7315-29-1, subsection K, in that Ms. Donaldson had engaged in conduct likely to deceive, defraud, or harm the public, as well as violating unprofessional conduct in 7315-29-1L, Rule 1.2C of the Mississippi Administrative Code, Part 2820, in that she also misrepresented, had some deception or failure to disclose information as requested on any licensure or Board of Nursing document. The evidence and testimony today will prove this denial true, in that Ms. Donaldson did answer no to the question when asked since the last application submission, had been found convicted, found guilty, or entered into any plea of a felony offense under applicable state or criminal law. And she actually in 2018, early that year, pled guilty to the felony offense of possession of methamphetamine. We are here on the appeal of Ms. Donaldson. She carries the burden to prove why this board should not uphold this denial.
All right, thank you, Ms. May. Ms. Donaldson, you may proceed with argument in support of your appeal.
I don't have any arguments against that. Only that I misunderstood, you know, from what drug court was telling me. You know, yes, I was charged with this, but I'm not convicted of anything. You know, as long as I get through drug court, you know, which I have, you know, so far. And then upon completion of the program, you know, my record will be clean. But it was to my understanding that, you know, I haven't been convicted of anything. So when I answered that question, I mean, I thought I was answering truthfully. And when my you know, my background check came back, it would explain, you know, my situation.
Ms. May, you may proceed.
Ms. Donaldson, I'd like to refer to Exhibit B8. If you could get Exhibit B8 out. Let me know when you have that document, please, ma'am.
I do.
Okay. Would you agree with me that Exhibit B8 is your application for license reinstatement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I want to go actually to the 4th page of Exhibit B8, Ms. Donaldson, where the heading is discipline.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when the question is asked in the application, have you been convicted or found guilty or entered into agreed disposition of a felony offense under applicable state or federal criminal law? Would you agree with me that you stated no there?
I do agree with you. Yes, I did state no.
Okay. And would you also agree with me that when you look at actually the 3rd question under the discipline section, where it says, have you pled guilty to, no contest to, or have been convicted of any drug or alcohol related offense, you answered no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I believe these questions did not ask you that you had just been found guilty or been adjudicated guilty. Would you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Question asked, had you entered into any type of contract, agreed disposition to a felony offense? Would you
Yes,
agree?
ma'am. I mean, looking at it now, yes, I do agree that the answer should have been yes.
Okay, all right. Well, then let's go to your drug court order, which I believe has been marked and entered into evidence as
Yes, ma'am.
B10. And okay, the first page of B10, would you agree with me? This is from case manager Capers with the 10th Circuit Drug Court.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this individual your personal case manager?
She is.
Okay. And so as of September 22nd, 2020, Ms. Capers does state that you are currently compliant with your drug court order, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, I'm moving into the second page of Exhibit B10, where it's the first page of your order placing you in drug court. See that with me?
Yes, ma'am.
And you entered into this agreement, looks like July 25th, 2019.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And your application date was actually October 19, 2019, was it not?
Yes, ma'am.
Later. Okay. And in this drug court order, you were ordered to pay fines, cost of court, other compensation fees for a total of $2,247.50. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And where are you with payment of fine as to today?
I am up to date. Last month I was phased up to phase 4. There are five phases in drug court. But as of now, yes, I am up to date.
So to date, you still have an outstanding fine, but not out of
Yes,
compliance.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I plan on paying that soon.
And your order says up to 5 years that you would be in this program, correct?
If needed. I'm already in phase 4.
Is that in
So-
your order?
Ma'am,
Is that in the order as needed? I'm just making sure.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
You mentioned that, I said 5 years and then you said as needed. And so I was just wondering, is there anywhere in the order that says as needed?
Well, it's up to 5 years. I have up to 5 years to complete drug court. But at this time, I have 8 months left.
And in this course of your participation, have you had an assessment done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I've had what do you mean assessments?
A substance use disorder assessment.
I'm sorry.
A substance use disorder assessment.
Yes, ma'am. I did in August 24th, I completed a 30-day inpatient treatment. That's just with drug court. You know, when I began drug court, that is required. I completed that on September 22nd. And since then, you know, I've been compliant with everything. Weekly drug tests. I call in every morning to the drug court line and to see if I test that day. NA meetings. I'm required to do NA meetings. I was doing the aftercare at Weems after I did complete the 30-day treatment, but with the pandemic, then that's not being offered anymore.
Ms. Donaldson, did you submit for the board's review the results of that assessment that you just testified to?
I have not.
Okay, what was your diagnosis?
Diagnosis, what do you mean?
Right, were you found to be chemically dependent or have a
No,
substance
ma'am.
use disorder?
I mean, no, I mean, what, I'm not an addict. What I did, I made some bad choices, when I moved back to Mississippi, I made some really bad choices. And I'm still paying for them today.
So what you were actually charged with then was possession, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Your testimony, you did not use crystal meth?
I did. Yes, ma'am. I did.
Okay, but it's also your testimony that you're not an addict.
No. I mean,
Right?
I did. Yeah, I am. I mean, I abused drugs at that point of period in my life. Yes.
Okay, what's your sobriety date?
My sobriety date. I mean, I don't remember the last time that I've used. I made some bad choices, that was out of my character.
What was your drug of choice?
Methamphetamines.
And you would agree with me that while you're still in the drug court
Yes,
program,
ma'am.
you are on criminal probation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when was the last time you used crystal meth? Did I miss that date?
It was in 2018. I'm not sure of the date.
You submitted a letter to the board explaining why you answered no to those application
Yes, ma'am.
questions. Exhibit B9, correct?
Hang on. Exhibit B9.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
And in that second paragraph, you stated that you had just moved back to Mississippi from Illinois and met a man and began dating him for a short period of time.
Yes, ma'am.
Stated. Okay. And then you stay here that you were in his car one day while he was
Mhm.
selling drugs to another individual. And because of that, you were arrested January 3rd, 2018.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I guess I'm bringing this up that you're explaining this because your letter would seem to indicate that this was a one-time situation for you.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it was a one-time situation. I mean, I'm not a habitual, I mean, it did happen a few times.
Okay. All right. Who would you consider to be part of your support group?
Well, I have my best friend. My family is in Illinois. I am from Illinois. I have my best friend here. I have right now, drug court has been a very big support system for me. Miss Capers, I've grown close to her. I have several nurse friends, that I keep in touch with. I have my fiance. I stayed in close contact with my mother. My ex-mother-in-law is a very big support system for me. She lives in Enterprise.
And forgive me for asking, but I think for purposes of making sure we understand your environment, is your current fiance the individual that you mentioned in Exhibit B9?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
You do realize today, Ms. Donaldson, that you carried the burden to show why the board should consider overturning the denial of your application for licensure. Do you not?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's just by your testimony alone that you are compliant with your drug court and that you are complying with the recommendations of an assessment that you're not sure what it was?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you realize that if the board by some chance allows you to move forward with your application, that other conditions may be placed upon you to include drug tests,
Ma'am.
assessments, classes, fines. The question sometimes becomes what the board might, what drug court conditions you have to fulfill. How are you going to do both?
I will do whatever I can. I mean, I will do whatever I need to do. I mean, I go and take my drug tests. I will do as many as I need to, you know. I recently got custody of my grandbabies, you know, so I was going, you know, they were requiring me to take drug tests, you know, while I was trying to get custody of my grandchildren. So in December, I did get permanent custody of them. You know, and whenever they called for me to come in and take a drug test, I came in and took a drug test.
You've had all negative drug tests?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you submitted that documentation for the board's review today?
I have not, but I can get all the documents from drug court.
You were licensed as an RN in 2014. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You worked about 2 years as a nurse?
Yes, ma'am, in Mississippi.
Okay. Did you have an active addiction then?
No, I did not.
Where was the last place you worked as a nurse?
I worked in Illinois until 2017 of April when I moved back to Mississippi. I worked at Sheldon Healthcare Nursing Center in Sheldon, Illinois. That's not the last place I worked. From May of 2019 till October 27th, I was working at Queen City Nursing Center.
What other information can you provide the board to prove that you would be safe to work as a nurse?
I will submit. I still attend the meetings that I'm required to do. I can, you know, I'm still in good standing. I'm hoping to return to Queen City Nursing Center, you know, as soon as I get my license back. I left there on good terms. They are more than willing to submit whatever, you know, they can on my behalf, you know, to work under any restrictions. You know, they're willing to help me with all that. I know drug court is in, you know, is in my corner. They will do, they can help me provide any documents needed.
This was your appeal today, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So all the board has to consider at this time is basically your word and a document that says you're ordered to continue criminal probation under drug court.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Nothing further.
Any questions from the board panel?
You said in 2017 that you moved back to the state of Mississippi. And you were
Ma'am.
working at Queen City Nursing Center?
No, in 2017, I moved back to Mississippi from Illinois. I was not, my license was expired. I was not working as a nurse. I did not begin working as a nurse here in Mississippi until May of 2019, when I applied for the emergency disaster permit. And I began working at Queen City Nursing Center then.
How long did you work there?
For 6 months. Until I received an email stating that my permit was, my license was denied.
Are you going to any kind of AA or NA meetings?
Yes, ma'am. I attend NA meetings. I'm required to do one a week, you know. Sometimes I get more than that, sometimes, you know. But I am current. I am compliant with my NA meetings.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything further from the board panel?
Just a real quick question. We have records, it's exhibit B11, that indicate that you had a prescription filled in August of this past year
Yes, ma'am.
for hydrocodone, acetaminophen.
Yes, ma'am, I did. I had several teeth pulled. I had some dental surgery. I got, false teeth. And during that time, that's was the prescription the dentist gave me.
And did you take all of those?
I did, yes. Under with permission from drug court, I did bring them my prescription. They did allow me to fill it. It was needed. I had 12 of them.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Anything further from the panel?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Ms. Donaldson, you can't see me, but I'm Shirley Jackson. With the documentation you have before us, your drug court, your AA meeting, did you not need to have some documentation for the board?
Well, what do you mean?
You say you've been going to the your classes.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't see any documentations of when you've gone, how often you've gone.
Okay. I'm more than willing to be able to submit that. Right now, they do have meetings available on Zoom and NA on phone lines that I've been taking advantage of.
Okay.
Because it is required through my drug court program that I am to attend NA meetings.
Okay, with document for the Board of Nursing, there are none.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
Anything further from the board panel? Ms. Donaldson, if you have a closing statement, you can make it at this time.
I just want to thank you again for, giving me this opportunity, and to hear my case. I just would like to have a better, walk away with an understanding of where I'm at, with my nursing license and what I need to do. Cause I'm willing to put in the work, to get my nursing license back.
Thank you, Ms. Donaldson. Ms. May?
The state would just submit that Ms. Donaldson has the burden today to show this board why they should overturn the denial that was administered to her, denying her reinstatement of licensure. Ms. Donaldson has testified to certain events that was required of her in drug court, but has not provided documentation for the board to review. I would also remind the board that the standard of proof that this board has to carry an action is clear and convincing. And that's 90%, if you will, accurate of what we have before us, that you can make a decision as to whether or not a license they should have the opportunity to have a license. The state would just contend Ms. Donaldson has not met that burden today. Perhaps she does need guidance. If the board decides to deny, perhaps the board can provide recommendations. If the board by some chance feels that she's met the clear and convincing standard to allow her to continue with her application, then the state would just recommend all or full drug stipulations, if you will, as Ms. Donaldson has not proven, at least from the state's point of view, that she is fit and safe to practice as a nurse.
Thank you, Ms. May. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the board to go into closed determination regarding deliberation on this matter.
Make executive session is in order. I second.
Been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. There are none opposed, and motion carries unanimously. I will now entertain a motion for the board to enter executive session.
Move that we enter executive session.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. The board will now exit to executive session. Ms. Donaldson, the board will enter deliberation on this matter. We will return once we are ready to render a decision. You may stay on the line or mute at this time.
Okay.
How you doing, sir? Hello, sir. How are you? Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Mr. How you pronounce that? Sergru? I don't guess he can hear me. Oh, he's connecting his audio now. Hello, Mr. Sergru?
Yes,
Sergru?
ma'am.
I just
Hey, how
wanted to
you
make sure you could hear me. How are you?
all right, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
No, you can't see me. I'm not visible. I'm just the operator over in the corner. So I just wanted to make sure I could hear you and you could hear us.
Okay, yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay, so the board panel is deliberating on another case now. They should
Yes,
be
ma'am.
returning shortly. You can hang on, you can mute your mute your line or turn your camera off if you choose to.
This is actually, I think, my second time using Zoom, so I don't want to lose nothing. So I'm
Okay,
just gonna leave it on.
fantastic. I do understand. So we'll
All right.
hang tight. And as soon as the board comes back, you'll see them come in.
Okay. Hello? Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure because I was looking at the screen and didn't see nothing going on.
We're still here.
Okay, all right.
We are back on the record. Entertain a motion to return to regular session.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. None opposed, the motion carries unanimously. We are back in regular session. The board panel following deliberation on license number R898549 renders the following. Administrative denial appeal is upheld. The licensee is recommended to contact the compliance officer here at the Board of Nursing at 601-957-6277. Again, the administrative denial appeal is upheld. The licensee is recommended to contact the compliance officer here at the Board of Nursing at 601-957-6277. Once the licensee has completed the drug court requirements successfully, documentation of that should be forwarded to the Board of Nursing. Absent any questions, that concludes your hearing for today. Ms. Donaldson, you are excused.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, good morning. The next matter before the board panel, license number R893452. Is the licensee present?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name.
Simone Sergio.
All right, thank you very much. Do you have any witnesses to testify on your behalf, Mr. Sergio?
No, sir.
All right, at this time, I'll ask that Mr. Sergio be sworn in.
The state would also ask that Vera Rucker, compliance officer in this case, be sworn in.
Thank you.
Would you both raise your right hands, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
I do.
All right, Mr. Sergio, my name is Edward Wiggins. I'll be serving as the hearing officer this morning. I'll ask that the board panel identify themselves at this time, please.
Mary Stewart, Teresa Stanford,
Shirley Jackson.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Sergio, you're not represented by counsel, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You understand you have the right to be represented by an attorney?
Yes, sir.
You also understand you have the right to present witnesses on your behalf?
Yes, sir.
You also understand you have the right to cross-examine any witness who may testify against you.
Yes, sir.
Finally, you understand you have the right to have subpoenas issued by the board prior to this hearing.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Counsel, are there any preliminary matters?
Yes, at this time, the state would ask that exhibits B1 through B10 be admitted into evidence.
Mr. Sergio, do you have any objection to those exhibits?
No, sir.
All right, they are admitted. We will begin with opening statements. Both parties will have an opportunity to present their arguments. The board panel will have the opportunity to ask questions. I'll remind everyone that these hearings are open to the public. All right, Mr. Sergio, we understand that this is a petition to remove your probation. If you have an opening statement, you may make it at this time.
Yes, sir. I have been diligently working on trying to get removed from probation from the state of Texas, as well as with you guys. I feel as though I have successfully completed the probation and have had my circumstances resolved, and now I'm requesting that the board, well, petitioning the board to have my probationary status removed from my nursing license.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Mootsiger.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Sergio is here on his petition to terminate probation of the final order dated February 15, 2018. Mr. Sergio came before this board October 12, 2017, where the following facts were established. On or about November 3rd, 2016, the respondent entered a plea of no contest to aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a second-degree felony in the 47th District Court of Randall County, Texas. The court entered an order of deferred adjudication, withholding the entry of a guilty conviction against the respondent and placing him on community supervision with conditions for a period of 6 years. The court also ordered the respondent to pay a fine, restitution, and a monthly supervision fee. As a result of that hearing with the Mississippi Board of Nursing, the board ordered that respondent shall be placed on probation until such time as he has fully complied with the terms of and has been discharged from the order of deferred adjudication entered by the 47th District Court of Randall County, Texas. Mr. Sergio is placed on probation, and further, the order stipulated that there shall be no automatic termination of probation, and that after the end of the respondent's or after a respondent has completed the conditions described, the respondent may petition the board in writing for termination of probation and full reinstatement of his license. So we are here today to evaluate Mr. Sergio's case and determine if he has complied with all terms and conditions and whether he is eligible for full reinstatement of his license, that is termination of his probation. I ask that the board consider all evidence duly admitted today and make a decision that is in accordance with the best interest of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mutsiger. Mr. Sergio,
Yes, sir.
you may proceed with your argument in support of your reinstatement or removal of probation, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, as I stated earlier, I have complied with all of my orders from the state of Texas, from Randall County. And with hard work and diligence, I have actually been able to be discharged early from my probation. With my exhibit, I think that you all have a copy of the final order in B7, exhibit B7 that you all have. And according to the order, once that was resolved, I could petition you all and try and get my license reinstated complete.
Did you have anything further, Mr. Sergio?
No, sir.
Mr. Mutsiger?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Sergio, you were ordered by this board on probation, and as part of that probation, you were to complete employer quarterly reports. Have you complied with that stipulation?
Yes, sir.
You are ordered to comply with the order of deferred adjudication in Randall County, Texas. Have you complied with that order of deferred adjudication?
Yes, sir.
Have you submitted evidence today to the board for their consideration to show that you in fact have that the matter in Randall, Texas has been dismissed and that the deferred adjudication has been terminated?
Yes, sir.
Is that in fact exhibit B9 presently before the board?
Yes, sir.
And so you did state, Mr. Sergio, that you completed early. And so for some clarification, the previous final order issued by the board stated that you were to be placed on community supervision for a period of 6 years. And that was in 2016. Obviously, 6 years has not elapsed since that time, yet the board has before it an order terminating deferred adjudication. Can you explain why that is before the board now?
Yes, sir. By exemplifying the fact that I have remained a good citizen and have not had any further incidences as far as my history of any type of criminal activities, they did see fit to allow me to leave the deferred adjudication order early.
So you have no pending requirements from this court, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Mr. Sergio, have you had any criminal actions levied against you since the issuance of this final order?
No, sir.
Mr. Sergio, are you currently employed as a nurse?
No, sir. Unfortunately.
What was your previous employment?
Mary Health River Region.
And how long were you employed with Merritt Health River Region?
About 2 years.
And as part of your compliance with this order, your employer submitted quarterly reports evidencing your practice as a nurse for them. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you stated that you are no longer with them. Is that a result of any disciplinary action or adverse finding?
To my understanding, there was a discrepancy with an issue, and I refused to perform a task. And as a result of me refusing to perform that task, I was terminated. Well, I was relieved to do that. I didn't know I was terminated until recently.
And so what is the discrepancy, Mr. Sergio?
Well, this was back in March of last year. And the situation is, they had a patient that was supposed to be suspected of having the COVID-19. And the prior night I worked, I had a patient that at the last minute we decided to test them for COVID-19 because they had a high fever and they were having shortness of breath and difficulties breathing. So the nurse supervisor for that night gave me instructions the first night that were different from the instructions the second night. And as a result of him not giving me proper information on how to protect myself properly, I refused the patient. And as a result of,
Did you in fact report this end of employment or separation of employment to the Board of Nursing?
yes, sir, the next day. Well, the day I found out.
And so you were forthcoming with your compliance officer regarding the details of the separation.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And are you presently seeking employment as a nurse?
Yes, sir.
So you do intend to continue practicing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no further questions.
Any questions from the board panel for Mr. Sergio?
I have a quick question, and I apologize if this was already clarified, but Mr. Serkey, when was your last employment as a registered nurse?
March the 5th of 2020.
So what have you been doing from March the 5th until today?
Applying for jobs.
Okay, and what are can you share some of the reasons perhaps that you've not been able to secure employment?
Now, yes, ma'am, I can. The biggest thing right now is everybody wants an unencumbered license. I actually got job offers from Baptist, got job offers from St. Dominic's. Everybody wants the unencumbered license. That's the biggest thing holding me up. That's holding me up right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I'm just looking at the records, but you were working, it looks like with Merit Health River Region. And then there's another where we were getting reports from Southern Healthcare Agency.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, these are two different agencies, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you stop working with Southern Healthcare Agency?
Actually, due to the board order, when I started actually doing the probation with you guys, the Mississippi State Board of Nursing, I actually went inactive, but I stayed on roster as an employee, but I was inactive due to the fact that they were not, I guess, allowing people to work with the probation orders with them as well. But I did stay on. I think through the records, you can see where they listed me as inactive, but I was still an employee with Southern Healthcare.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anything further from the panel?
No.
Ms. Musaiger?
The state will call Vera Rucker. Please state your name for the record.
Vera Rucker,
In what capacity are you here today?
compliance officer.
And are you the compliance officer with the Board of Nursing assigned to the case presently before the board of Simone Sergiu? And Ms. Rucker, at what point were you assigned to this case?
I was signed the case in February of 2018 when the order was signed.
Okay. And Ms. Rucker, what was your understanding based off of your role and the final order, Exhibit B7 presently before the board? Generally speaking, what was required of Mr. Sergiu to comply with his final order?
To complete his deferred adjudication with the 47th District Court of Randall County, Texas. Sent in an employment notification if he was not working or when he began working. And quarterly reports, he had to sign a release and keep his license current, notify the board of any change of employment if he moved or if he changed his name or if he enrolled in school.
Briefly, just to cover it all, has he complied with this order?
He has.
And so he has in fact complied or provided sufficient evidence of his completion with the Randall County Court in Texas with the order of deferred adjudication. Is that correct?
Correct.
He has in fact provided to you employer reports on time and with no negative findings.
Correct.
So there's no discrepancy as far as you can tell from your role in ensuring that Mr. Segru complied with his order.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. And also I would ask Ms. Rucker, as you previously or just heard from Mr. Sergio, he was separated from employment at Merit Health River Region. Did he in fact inform you when he was separated from his employment?
He did. He called me immediately and informed me what went on as he disclosed to the board. I asked him to put that in writing, to email it to me, and I did receive it, I believe, later that day.
Okay. And have you received any communication from Merit Health River Region regarding the separation?
No, they did not send anything. I did place some calls over there, left messages for the DON to call me back and left messages informing them what I needed, and I have not received anything.
So you made an effort to ensure that there was no foul play, if you will, and you've received no information from the facility. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the only way the board really knows about the fact he was separated from employment is because he told the board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, just briefly, Ms. Rucker, I may have one or two more questions. He has indeed maintained a current license for the duration. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And he has submitted a petition to you requesting termination of his probation. Is that accurate? All right, and one more time for the record, Ms. Rucker, has he complied to the best of your knowledge with all the terms and conditions of the board order dated February 15th, 2018?
He has complied.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rucker. No further questions.
Mr. Sergio, do you have any questions for Ms. Rucker?
No, sir.
Any questions for Ms. Rucker from the board panel? Mr. Sergio, at this time, if you have a closing statement, you may make it.
Well, the only thing that I can think of is that I am a dedicated nurse. I love what I do. I know I've made a mistake. I feel as though I've paid for it. And if y'all can see fit to have my license fully reinstated, that would be the best thing going. I would definitely appreciate everything that you all do.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Musaiger.
Yes, thank you. Today, the burden is carried by Mr. Sergio to show that he is in fact entitled to termination of his probation. Based off the testimony of Mr. Sergio and Ms. Rucker, the board's compliance officer, as well as a review of the documentation submitted to the board for its review, it would appear that Mr. Sergio has in fact complied with all terms of his probation and is in fact eligible for termination of his probation. Based on the testimony and evidence presented today, as always, I yield to the board's discretion in making that decision and making a determination that is within the best interest of protection of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mutzeiger. At this time, I will entertain a motion for close determination whether the board should enter executive session on deliberation of this matter.
I make a motion to go into closed determination to determine if executive session is in order.
I second.
Been moved and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed. The motion carries unanimously. At this time, entertain a motion for the board to exit to executive session for deliberation on this matter.
I second.
Been moved and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have none opposed. The board will now exit to executive session on this matter. We will return, Mr. Sergio, at 1 o'clock with your decision. You may, sorry.
Do we need an hour break? 30, 45 minutes, or we need this?
All right, Mr. Sergio, we'll be back at 12:45.
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Wiley, would you please mute our microphone? Microphone is not muted. Did I miss something? Did I miss something? I thought you pointed sarcasm. Oh, okay, I was trying to see. I'll make sure I didn't. Okay.